Hello, and welcome to my channel. This is my first video, so I am deeply uncomfortable recording this right now. And also, the main reason why I decided to have this YouTube channel at all is to buy this. This is gonna be my first crochet tutorial, and it's gonna be the Ibisco top. It's cute, summery, it's light, but there isn't a lot of time left in the summer, and so we need to make it now. I'm going to talk a little bit about the top. If you want to skip to the tutorial, go ahead, but I wouldn't recommend you do that because I think there is some valuable information here. So first of all, this is a beginner project, but beginners that are comfortable with their basic stitches. Most of the project is worked with a linked double crochet, which is a variation of a double crochet. The difference is basically we're working in a different hole. I mean, we're linking, well, you'll see how it's done. It's not that hard, but it does need a bit of like, you have to feel comfortable with a normal double crochet before you do that. And basically the difference is that it works up a little bit slower, but it has less gaps between the stitches, because a double crochet unfortunately does leave gaps. This one will not, but it works faster than a single crochet and a half double crochet. Other than that, we're going to work with half double crochet and single crochet, and I think that's it. Nothing else. It's a very repetitive pattern as well, so it's really easy. The tutorial is going to be split in 3 parts. The first, which is going to be the body, the second, which is going to be the cups, the third is going to be the edges. Then you wonder what happens to the flower. The flower is going to be another tutorial that I will link here because it's not my tutorial. Like, I have used somebody else's pattern, and so I'm not going to take credit for that. I will leave a tutorial linked for the flower, which is fairly easy as well. This is also a fairly quick project. You could probably finish it between 5 and 8 hours. This depends on how quick you are, how skilled of a crocheter you are, and what size of yarn and hook you use. I work both of my tops with a 3.5 millimeter hook, and in both of them I'm pretty sure I use like a mix of DK yarn and what's the other one that's below DK yarn? Use here, this one is 100% cotton, and the new one is, the yellow is a blend of cotton and acrylic, and the white is a blend of silk and cotton. And I think both of them are quite, lightweight, breathable, perfect for summer. So I would recommend that you use any of those or bamboo. You can also make the back of this top in different ways. I've done both of them like this. So there is like the open back, but there is a ribbon instead of a crochet cord, which I think looks a bit tacky, even though I have plenty of other projects that have a crochet cord. But I like the look of a ribbon. It looks more polished, it looks neater, it looks tidier, more professional. You could also just use buttons instead, or you could make the body bust, I don't know if this is a bust, whatever this is, the body bend wider so that you could sew it shut and have a completely sewn back. The purpose of this top was to be a bit like a corset top, and so make you look snatched. So if you sew it at the back, you will not look snatched because cotton is not stretchy. This in particular is not a stretchy stitch. If you do that, over time it will just sag because it will not bounce back every time you put it on and take it off, and it will look like a sack of potatoes probably. So I don't take any responsibility for that. I think there is nothing left to say now. I've yapped long enough. I'm gonna show you the materials you're gonna need, and that's it. We start. Okay, so we're going to start the project by making a chain that is going to fit around our bust area, so below our breast. We're gonna do this chain with either of the color. I personally like to do it with the primary color, which in this case is gonna be white, while my secondary color is going to be yellow. Because I'm planning to use a ribbon, I only chained 104 so the 2 ends wouldn't meet, because I want to leave some gap to put my ribbon in. But if you're planning, for example, to sew your project shut, then you would have to make the 2 ends long enough to actually touch. Now that our chain is complete, we're going to start working into the second chain from the hook. And we're going to start with our linked double crochet. This is how to start this stitch. So you pull up a loop through the second hole, and then your second loop will have to be worked through the back loop of the chain. So I'm going to show you what the back loop is in case you don't know. So this is the front of a chain, and this is what the back looks like. You see there are those little bumps at the back. That's where you're supposed to work. So after you enter the back loop, you're going to pull up a loop, you're going to pull through two and through two, like a normal double crochet. For our second stitch, we are going to enter the hook into this loop down here. And then we're going to find the next back loop to insert our hook. So right now we have two loops on our hook. Now we're in, we pull up a loop, we pull through two, and we pull through two, like a normal double crochet. I'm gonna put a stitch marker here to remember where my first stitch is and to make sure that I don't skip any. Now we're gonna get through that loop again, so down there. As you work this stitch, you will see it becomes easier because it's kind of forming a line, so that it's gonna make it easier to know where to insert your hook for your next stitch. This entire first row is gonna be worked into the back loop, so it's a bit annoying because the back loop is quite tight, but it's only for this row. The other ones are gonna be much easier. Okay, so here we are. I'm gonna show you how to finish the first row and how to start the next one. So to start the next row, we're going to chain two. Then once again, we are working in the second chain from the hook. Pulling up a loop, and then this time we're working into the first stitch of the row. Pulling up another loop, pull through two, pull through two. Now we're going to work into the weird loop again. I don't know what's the actual name. So yeah, we're gonna pull up a loop through that loop, and then we're going to enter the next stitch and pull up another loop. Pull through two, pull through two. And then we put on a stitch marker on the first chain once again, on the first stitch, sorry, to make sure that we don't get confused. And then work in the weird loop again. In the next stitch, pull through two, pull through two. As long as you're seeing this line being straight, you know that you're working in the right loop. Once again, we are at the end of the row. We are going to chain two to start the next row, and we're going to work in the second chain from the hook. You can make as many rows as you like of each color. I've decided to make 4 for my primary color and 2 for my secondary color. Now, I've just finished working all my 4 rows with my primary color, which for you could be less or could be more. I'm going to show you how to change into your next color. We're going to start working on the last stitch as normal, but when we pull up through the first 2 loops, we stop because that's when we will add the new color. So we're going to pull the new color into the last 2 loops on the hook, and then we're going to chain 2 as we always do when starting a new row. And then working into the second chain from the hook and then into the first stitch. And then we're just working this row exactly like all the previous rows. It's a repeating pattern. Change color as many times as you want. Make sure you try on the panel, like you put it against your stomach to see if it's long enough to cover you. You could make it cropped if you prefer a crop top, or you can make it full length. When I finished my panel, I decided to block it before creating the cups because I thought I made it too small, but turns out I actually made it too big. Regardless, I would always recommend blocking your project. Now we're going to start working on the cups. Of course, we're making 1 cup at a time, and we're going to chain a chain long enough to fit at the base of our boob. In this case, I have measured my chain against my latest project, but you could also just use a bikini cup or just put it on yourself if it fits. Now, unfortunately, we're going to have to do again what we have done on the first row of the panel. So we're going to have to work through the second chain from the hook, pull up a loop, and then pull up another loop by working into the back loop of the next chain. So we're going to work this entire row the same as we did in the panel. We're going to work into the weird loop and then into the back loop of the next chain. Our second row is going to start with a decrease. So we're going to alternate decreases between rows. At the end of each row, we're going to chain 2 and turn our work. We're going to work into the second chain from the hook. We're going to pull up a loop, and then we're going to insert our hook into the first stitch. We're going to pull up another loop into the second stitch. We're going to have 4 loops on the hook. We're going to pull through 2, and then we're going to pull through 3. Then we're going to work into the weird loop down there again. Pull 1, then pull another loop, pull through 2, pull through 2. The rest of the row is just normal. So the decrease is just going to be at the start and at the end of the row. I'm also not sure if this is the right way to decrease a linked double crochet. I've seen some videos about it and it looked different and more complicated. So I've decided to do my decrease like this because it works. I'm going to show you how to do another decrease at the end of the row. So when we have 2 stitches left on our row, we're going to start as normal our next linked double crochet by working into the weird loop, pull up a loop, then work into the next stitch, pull up a loop, and then work into the next stitch and pull up a loop. When you have 4 loops on your hook, you know that you are done. So you're going to pull through the first 2 and then you're going to pull through the last 3. And we're going to chain 2 and turn our work as normal. We're going to start our next row. This row will not have a decrease, so we will just do a normal row. We get to the end here. Once again, no decrease. So we finish it as normal, just working into the last stitch. Then we chain two, turn our work, and then we do another decrease. Work into the second chain from the hook, work into the first stitch, work into the second stitch, pull up through two, pull up through three, put your stitch marker on, which I will do in a minute, and then work as normal the rest of the row. You will need to put the cup against your chest because we are going to stop alternating decreases. And then we're going to start to make decreases in each row. This is basically to make sure that we have given enough coverage to the breast, and now we can start slimming down the top of the cup. We're going to count all the stitches of the first row of the panel now, and we're going to find the middle of the panel. So for example, if you have 100 rows, the middle will be 50 rows. So you're going to count 50, you're going to put a stitch marker in the middle, and this is where our cups are going to meet, unless you want to give more space to the cups, in which you could leave a bit of space in the middle, but I think it looks best if the cups are attached through the same stitch. Then you need to count how many stitches are at the base of your cup, and you're going to place two other stitch markers on the panel, which will be where the cups will be sewn. I'm going to turn my work, so I'm going to work on the ugly side of the project, and I'm going to use a darning needle and my primary color to sew the cups to the panel. I'm going to sew from the outside to the center of the panel, and I'm going to sew the panel to the cup by inserting my needle through the back loop of the panel and the front loop of the cup. Now we're at the very end, and we're going to sew that last stitch where the stitch marker is, and then we just keep going straight and just attach the next cup, starting from that middle stitch marker up until the stitch marker to the side. So just work straight in the same line. Now we're going to work on our edges, so we're going to have to turn our project around and work on the sides. So basically where the two ends of the panel are, where they will meet, where you will put your buttons, or where you will put the two ends together, or where you will use your ribbon. Something has happened to the video I took of this part. I'm not sure what, but I cannot find it. So I'm going to explain what you're going to do. You're going to take that secondary color and you're going to attach it to the start of the row, and you're just going to work single crochet all along the sides. You're going to make as many rows as you want of single crochet up and down the sides. I made 4, you can make more, you can make less. It depends how your top looks and how big or small it is. Working in the sides is a bit hard because there isn't defined stitches, so you kind of have to work in whatever holes you find. But what's important is that you count how many single crochet you are working, because the two sides are going to have to match exactly. So for example, I worked 46 stitches on this side, and I'm going to make sure that on the other side of the top, I'm also going to work 46 stitches. When I'm happy with the thickness of my edge, I start creating the loops to put my ribbon through. I did that by chaining 8 and then slip stitching that chain into the 9th stitch from the hook. And then I repeated that until the end of the row. So chain 8, slip stitch in the 9th stitch, and so on. You're going to have to do your own maths here. Because I had 46 stitches, I calculated how many loops I wanted, and so how many chains I needed to make in order to have those loops. So basically, I wanted 5 loops. I divided 46 by 5. You can make as many loops as you want. You can make them bigger than mine. You can make them smaller than mine. You wouldn't even need to use maths if you don't really want to. I usually don't. And I just kind of make them randomly and hope they kind of look the same. Then I'm just going to finish that row, cut off my yarn and make a knot. And then I'm going to do exactly the same process on the other side of the panel. So create your edge with single crochet first, and then create your loops when you are happy with your edge. Now that the sides are ready and matching, we're going to start to make the edges around the top and around the cups. So I'm going to start from here, from the side. I'm going to put through that secondary color. I'm going to just work single crochets all around the project. When we get to that first corner where our first cup starts, we will put 2 single crochet in the same corner stitch just to create a bit of space. And then we will just keep making single crochet along the whole cup. The cup will not have defined stitches, so just put stitches in any hole. You don't need to count them, it doesn't matter. We keep working with single crochet all around the project until we get to the other side of the panel. When we get to the end of that row, we're going to chain 1, turn our work, and then we're going to start doing another row of single crochet, and then we will stop at the top of the first cup. When we get to the top of the cup, we should have kind of like 2 stitches probably. At the top, we are going to make a single crochet in the first stitch. We're going to chain then as many really as we want, depends how long you want your laces to be. And then we are going to start working half double crochet all along the chain until we get to the cup again. So we yarn over, we work in the second chain from the hook, and then we just pull through all 3 loops on our hook. After we have done our row of half double crochet, we will arrive at the base of the chain again, and we are going to slip stitch that chain into the second stitch at the top of the cup. And then we're going to keep doing the single crochet all around the edges like we've done for the first row until we get to the second cup. At the top of the second cup, we're going to repeat the same process. We're going to chain the same amount of chains, and we're going to do half double crochet, slip stitch into the cup, and finish then with the edges. Now that the edges are finished, we can weave in all our ends on the ugly side of the project. Now I made the Ibisco flower using the tutorial that I linked in the description box, and I'm going to show you how I put the beads through the flower. So we're going to need some very thin yarn, like fingering size. We're going to need a beading needle, a pair of scissors, and beads. So I'm going to put that thin yarn through the beading needle, and then I'm going to put that needle through the beads one by one. And then when all our beads are on the thread, we're just going to make some knots so that they don't fall off. Then we're going to insert that thread into the darning needle, and we're going to work in the middle of the flower in the front. It's a bit hard because I've used a hot glue gun to glue the petals together, so it might need a bit of strength if you've also used glue. I've repeated the process a second time, so now I have two sets of beads, and now we're just going to weave in the ends at the back, tie the knots to make sure the beads are secure. After you're done cutting everything off, you can start deciding where you want to place your flower. So in this case, it's a good idea to try on your top and see how the flower looks on it, where you want it, whether you want it in the middle of the cups or you want it on the side. I like it on my lower left side. So I've attached it with some stitch markers, and now I'm gonna sew it on. And that's the project finished for you. When I tried the top on for the first time using a ribbon, I realized it looked too baggy because probably the first panel I made was just too large, like too wide. And so I decided to unravel the loops I made for the ribbon and use some buttons instead. So I went through my vintage button collection and tried to find some buttons that would match the project. I found these beautiful yellow buttons, which I think match the project perfectly, and I decided to use six of them and place them basically where the yellow rows are. I have sewn the buttons on one side of the top, and on the other side, I've created some small loops to feed the buttons through, and I've tried to do this at the same height. So where there is that color change, that yellow row, it's where I have sewn my buttons and created the loop on the other side. And now it looks a lot better, it's more fitted to my body, it's more flattering, and I love the result. I hope you enjoy it. Bye.